Imagine you're walking through the streets of your city. The air is calm. The sun hangs lazily in the sky. Traffic flows. People laugh. Life goes on like it always does. But then, without warning, the unimaginable happens. In a fraction of a second, the Earth's rotation stops. No gradual slowdown, no time to react. Just a sudden violent halt of the entire planet spinning at over 1,000 miles per hour, and the consequences. They are beyond anything you've ever seen in a disaster movie. The moment it stops, inertia takes over. Everything that isn't solidly anchored to the bedrock is suddenly launched eastward at incredible speeds. Trees, cars, entire buildings, ripped from the ground and flung across the landscape like paper in a hurricane. People are hurled through the air, slammed into walls, tossed from balconies, vehicles, and skyscrapers. Highways twist and snap. Planes lose control mid-flight and plummet. Imagine standing at the equator and watching an entire skyline break apart and sail through the air like toys caught in a tornado made of gravity and motion. It doesn't matter where you are. Whether you're in New York, Tokyo, Nairobi, or São Paulo, you're not safe. The faster you're moving relative to Earth's axis, the worse it gets. And at the equator, that means you're being flung faster than a bullet. Cities along the equator experience devastation on a scale never seen before. But even further from the equator, the destruction is staggering. Skyscrapers sway and crumble. Bridges rip apart. Everything man-made begins to collapse under the violence of sudden motion. But it's not just the land. The oceans. Oh, the oceans. They don't stop either. The water continues to move at full rotational speed, unleashing tsunamis thousands of feet high. Entire coastlines vanish as walls of seawater tear through them. Islands disappear beneath the waves. Coastal cities are swallowed whole. New York, gone. Miami, obliterated. Mumbai, Tokyo, Shanghai, erased in minutes. And there's no warning, no sirens, no time to escape. Just a deep, low roar. The sound of water coming for everything. As the atmosphere keeps spinning too, winds scream across the surface of the Earth at supersonic speeds. Winds that peel the skin off buildings, strip the land of vegetation, and shred anything that stands in their path. Think hurricanes but multiplied by 100. No weather system known to man even comes close. Planes are flung from the sky. Birds are vaporized in midair. Entire forests are uprooted and scattered like straw. The skies turn dark, choked with debris, dust, and human-made chaos. Day turns to night as the sun is blotted out by the clouds of destruction. Meanwhile, people are dying not just from the impacts but from the collapse of everything they depend on. Power grids fail instantly. Communication systems crash. Satellites lose sync. The internet goes down. Emergency services? Overwhelmed. If they even survive. Hospitals buckle. Water lines snap. Fires rage uncontrolled as fire departments cease to exist. And in the middle of it all, terrified survivors try to make sense of a world turned upside down in less than a second. And it's not just physical destruction. The psychological terror is unlike anything anyone has ever felt. Children scream for parents who are no longer there. Families are torn apart, literally. Panic spreads faster than the wind, with no information, no guidance, no safe place to run. You're not thinking about rebuilding. You're thinking about breathing, surviving, hoping your shelter can withstand the storm outside. You're praying, begging, doing anything just to make it to the next minute. The Earth, the one thing we all thought we could depend on, has betrayed us in the most violent way possible. Time itself feels distorted. People don't know if it's day or night. The sun is stuck in one place in the sky. Half the planet begins to scorch under unrelenting heat, while the other half begins to freeze. But in those first few minutes, in that initial moment when the Earth stops spinning, none of that matters yet. All anyone can think about is surviving the initial blow, the sheer force of the stop, the sound of the Earth roaring around you, the instant destruction of everything that was once normal. And still, as the chaos unfolds, the planet itself begins to shift. Earthquakes are triggered across continents as tectonic plates respond violently to the change. Volcanoes erupt. Mountains collapse. Sinkholes open. The very surface of the Earth becomes unstable, cracking and groaning as if the planet itself is crying out in agony. Everything is moving. Everything, that is, except the Earth's rotation, which now stands horrifyingly still. The world as we know it is gone in a flash, not because of war, not because of disease, but because the one thing we thought would never change, just did. Let me know if you'd like the next chapter expanded in the same tone, or if you want visuals, sound effect cues, or pacing suggestions for editing. While the surface is still reeling from the unimaginable chaos of the initial stop, something even more terrifying is unfolding beneath our feet and high above our heads. You might think the worst is over, that the flying buildings and monstrous waves were the peak of the disaster. But in truth, the violence is just beginning. Because when Earth stops spinning, it's not just about momentum. It's about everything else that depends on motion to function, and it turns out that's almost everything. Deep beneath the crust, the molten core of the Earth is still churning. It's always spinning. It's what creates our magnetic field, our invisible shield against deadly solar radiation and cosmic rays. That field doesn't just protect us from solar flares, it stabilizes life itself. But when the rotation stops, the core's motion is disrupted. The magnetic field begins to collapse. Not slowly, but fast, violently fast. Within hours, it weakens. Within a day, it's nearly gone. The shield we've relied on for billions of years begins to flicker like a dying light bulb. And then, silence. Above us, solar radiation begins to pour in, completely unchecked. Radiation that was once deflected by our magnetic bubble now penetrates the atmosphere, frying electrical systems, disrupting the nervous systems of animals, and bombarding the planet's surface with high-energy particles. Auroras that were once confined to the poles now stretch across the skies like blood-red curtains, shimmering and hissing. Beautiful, yes. But it's beauty wrapped in death. For the people exposed to this radiation, skin burns begin to appear. Within hours, DNA is scrambled, cancer rates skyrocket. Those living at high altitudes are hit first, but no one is safe. The atmosphere has become transparent to things it was never meant to let in. And the technology we rely on? It's vanishing piece by piece. GPS satellites can't sync anymore. They're programmed to work with a rotating Earth, a system that no longer exists. Planes crash without guidance. Ships drift aimlessly. Communication satellites fall silent. Even the clocks begin to fail. You might think a day is still 24 hours long, but now that the Earth has stopped, one side is locked in sunlight, and the other in darkness. Endlessly. The concept of time breaks apart. One half of the world begins to boil under constant exposure to the sun, while the other plummets into sub-zero blackness. A single day is no longer a cycle. It's a sentence. On the bright side of Earth, cities begin to cook. The sun never moves. Shadows never shift. Temperatures rise hour by hour, turning asphalt into liquid, frying plants at the root, and dehydrating everything with unrelenting UV rays. Crops die in the fields. Water begins to evaporate from lakes, rivers, even reservoirs. The air becomes a blistering furnace filled with the stench of decay and smoke. Without the Coriolis effect, a product of Earth's rotation, the jet streams stop. Weather patterns break down. Storms hover in place, never moving, growing, more violent with each hour. The clouds no longer travel. Rain doesn't fall where it's needed. Deserts expand. Forests ignite. There's no more balance. On the dark side of Earth, the nightmare is different, but equally cruel. Without the sun, temperatures fall fast, dropping to levels usually found only in the outer reaches of space. Within a day, cities freeze solid. Power grids fail not just because of destruction, but because fuel systems collapse. Wind turbines don't spin. Solar panels are useless. People huddle in basements, wrapping themselves in blankets, burning furniture for warmth, anything, to avoid freezing to death in their homes. Oceans near the poles begin to freeze, and that ice starts creeping southward like a living thing, swallowing coastlines, erasing everything in its path with perfect, silent cold. And as the heat and cold fight across the now dead planet, the Atmosphere itself begins to change. The balance of gases shifts. Oxygen levels plummet. Carbon dioxide, once filtered by forests and oceans, begins to rise. Without weather cycles, the air becomes stagnant in places. Poisonous clouds build up and linger, suffocating entire regions. Insects, birds, and animals perish en masse, leaving behind an eerie silence. The food chain collapses. And humans? They begin to feel the slow suffocation of a planet that can no longer breathe for them. Then there's gravity. It's subtle, but it shifts too. Without the bulge caused by Earth's spin, water starts to migrate toward the poles. The equator begins to dry out as oceans creep away from it. The shape of the Earth itself starts to change. No longer a slightly squished sphere, but rounder, denser. Fault lines tremble under this adjustment. Earthquakes tear through cities, already buried in ice or scorched by fire. Volcanic activity surges. As the world lies in ruins, scorched on one side and frozen on the other, something begins to change. A low, almost imperceptible tremble rolls through the planet. It starts in the core, deep, hidden, violent. After 24 hours of brutal stillness, the Earth begins to stir again. But this isn't a gentle restart. This isn't a smooth rotation easing back into motion. No, the Earth starts spinning again, suddenly. And once again, the laws of physics unleash hell. The surface, already battered from the first stop, is slammed in the opposite direction. All the debris, the collapsed cities, the fractured mountains, the ocean water that had surged inland, it's all thrown again. But this time it's even worse. The fractured remnants of civilization are twisted, flipped, and shattered beyond recognition. People who managed to survive the stop are now faced with the violent reawakening of a planet spinning back into motion. There is no safe zone, no higher ground, no corner untouched. Oceans recoil violently. Tsunamis rise again, this time in reverse, dragging what little is left of coastal regions back into the sea. Buildings that somehow stood through the first stop are snapped in half. Planes are tossed like paper. Dust clouds from collapsed cities cover the skies. Firestorms rage through dried-out forests. On the dark side of Earth, as the sun finally begins to creep back into the sky, the ice starts to crack, melt, and flood everything beneath it. But that meltwater doesn't flow gently. It crashes downward in torrents, eroding land, drowning valleys, swallowing towns buried in snow. And all this is happening while humanity is still trying to stand. Emergency bunkers, if they still exist, are filled with people who don't know what's happening outside. They don't know what time it is. They don't know if it's safe to leave. Communication is gone. Governments no longer function. Satellites are fried. No one is coming to help. It's every community for itself. And even then, survival is a temporary illusion. The ecosystems have collapsed. Animals are dead. Crops are gone. The atmosphere is poisoned with radiation and chemical imbalance. The magnetic field, still struggling to re-establish itself, offers no real protection. Solar flares continue to bombard the planet. The seasons are broken. The tides are unpredictable. The moon's gravitational tug begins to pull erratically at the oceans, causing tidal surges where no coastlines exist anymore. But perhaps the most terrifying part is the silence that follows. After the spinning stabilizes, after the last tremor fades, the Earth is still. Not motionless, but emotionally, spiritually, hauntingly still. What was once a planet bursting with life is now quiet. Burnt, icy, unfamiliar. Survivors step out into a world they no longer recognize. The skyline is gone. The stars look different. The sun feels strange. People don't speak, not because they can't, but because there's nothing left to say. Civilization didn't just fall, it was reset, with fire and ice and gravity. And all of this, every second of horror, every wave, every gust of radiation, every scream, came from just one day without rotation. Just 24 hours of stillness. That's all it took to bring our species to the edge of extinction and show us just how delicate our place on this planet really is. So the next time you feel the breeze on your face, or watch the sun rise gently over the horizon, or complain about time moving too fast, remember what it would be like if it all just stopped. If this blew your mind, hit that like button and share this with someone who needs to know just how crazy Earth science really is. Don't forget to subscribe for more